So Project Management Institute ran a study in 2020, or it published in 2020, that forecasted 250 million project management jobs to be created from 2020 to 2030. Now, we all know in 2020 there's a little bit of
A
a
hiccup.
global issue,
Yeah.
and so those numbers, I would argue probably haven't changed too much over time, but that essentially equates to 25 million project management jobs each year being added globally.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Book More Show. It's Stuart here, and today you're joined by Michael Shick. Michael, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Stuart, thank you so much for having me.
Real pleasure. Do you know, we've spoken a lot, but I've just realized that I think that's the first time I've said your surname out loud, and I suddenly had a moment of mispronunciation panic as I said it. Is it Shick?
It is Chick, yes.
Okay, perfect. It's not a silent chic or anything like that. It's so funny when you get to know people and you talk a lot and you have maybe an online connection first, and then you say something out loud for the first time. It's almost reinforcing point that so many of our relationships and the conversations that we start with people are in like a digital or text format first. You don't necessarily get introduced in the same way. So it's funny that you get these real world reminders of how conversations really go in such an online based world. So I don't know if you ever feel the same.
Well, I do. And, it's funny that you should bring it up, Stuart, because when you said my name, I was like, I think that's the first time I've heard him say my full name. So, and it came off great. So please rest assured, it was all good.
Perfect. And if there's any problems with that, I'm just going to blame the accent or just say it fast so that it just goes by quickly.
Or it could be like when I was a younger person and, you could get yelled at because somebody misheard my last name.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. There's always that, which I'm sure was lots of opportunity to say that as well.
yeah.
We've known each other for a little while now. It's always great to have podcasts like this with people I know because I always feel like there's a little bit more value that we can deliver because there's not so much of the broader explanation. We can cut to the points a little bit quicker. But I'm also conscious that the audience doesn't know you yet. So why don't we start with a quick intro and share with everyone where you are and what you do?
Certainly. So, Michael Shick, I've been fortunate enough to serve in the United States military. I retired at the end of 2022. And when I transitioned and retired, I moved into academia where I am now an assistant professor of project management at Western Carolina University. I also own a project management business called Rosemet, and it's been fantastic because within Rosemet, we focus on creating content on project management. So, templates, examples, trying to help people understand project management writ large. We also do training on certified associate in project management, as well as training for the project management professional or PMP certification. And the goal is not just simply to teach the exam, but actually teach people about project management. And so, depending on where they are on their journey, whether they're aspiring or new project managers, earning a certified associate in project management is that great place to start. But when you're looking at the PMP, you have somebody who's typically has a minimum of 3 years of project management experience. And so now it's taking it to the next level and being able to meet people where they are, help them achieve their goals in moving into project management or elevating their career is certainly an amazing approach. Now, on the assistant professor side, I teach undergrad students, but predominantly teach graduate students in project management. So these are people with years and years of project management experience. They may have a PMP already, and now we're trying to professionalize them in a manner of saying, all right, yes, you understand the tools and techniques now, understand the team dynamics of and how to motivate teams, create trust within teams. And then we certainly get into advanced tools and techniques, but we're trying to elevate people to move into the C-suite type of roles. So take those experienced project managers and take them to the next level, whether it be in the program management or portfolio management, project portfolio management, not the finance side of
Right.
portfolio management, or project management office, PMO, directorship type, those type of things.
That academic course, is that entirely, are the students entirely going through project management or program management based course, or is it one module as part of a broader business management type program?
Great question. So it's our degree is a master's of project management. So it's a
Okay.
deep dive into project management for project managers. In fact, our slogan, if you will, is a legacy of leadership and a program built for professional PMs. So how where we go from a legacy of leadership, Western Carolina University was one of the, if not the first accredited program in the world for through PMI. So the Project Management Institute,
Oh, that's
Global
interesting.
Accreditation Center. We
Yeah.
were accredited in 1983, and we've held that accreditation all the way to today. And so being the first one United States, again, we argue in the world that was accredited by PMI, we've shown a track record of success. And this is a deep dive into project management. We don't pull in any other type of classes. Everything is centered around project management, and it is depth
Yeah.
from day one. And when there's often times I've had this conversation, and forgive me, Stuart, if you just give me a quick second.
Yeah.
You know, there pe people are certainly proud of their PMP, and as they should be. That's a challenging exam. I don't ever want to take it again, but it's a challenging exam. But this is an assessment on what you know,
Right.
okay, through a project management institute lens. All right. There are several different bodies, as you know, you being from the UK, you have Prince 2, the Project and Controlled Environments 2 certification, which is, its own framework and methodology. There's other, programs and opportunities throughout the globe. This just happens, the PMP is towards the Project Management Institute. So people understand that framework, and they may or may not even use it within their organization.
Right.
Our master's in project management at Western Carolina University is more of a broader focus, and we bring in peer-reviewed research. Myself and the other faculty, we're all terminal degree holders. We all do research in project management. So we're pushing the discussion forward through our research, and we'll go to conferences and we'll give talks and things of that nature. So that is more of a transformative type of experience. So it's taking people who know the systems, they know the processes, which is what the PMP validates. Now we're taking that and transforming them into executive leaders that can bring everything together and not just be focused on one particular set of processes and frameworks, but more globally, universally, in a sense.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? That extra time that you've got with your bigger program, the breadth of experience of the different people, the fact that the success criteria or the measurement criteria is more about broad application in real world situations rather than just answering the questions for the purpose of the test at the lower levels, because you're really going from an introductory level all the way through to the highest academic level that it is. But that real world breadth of the degree program or the master's program, it does add a layer of color and real world application to it broader than just the certification.
100%. And we've seen from our alumni moving up into the senior positions, going to conferences, being keynote speakers at PMI events globally. So exactly how the program is structured and geared is achieving the results that we're aiming. And I got to say, it's in large part, I would say, is the faculty before me. I work with an excellent group of individuals. you know Vital, for example, He's literally written the textbooks on project management that a lot of programs use. Nathan, Todd, and Yang, each one of these folks, they come with the PMP certification. They all have their doctorates. They consult on the side. They're involved in the field with PMI and with other organizations. And so you have folks that are practitioners and scholars, and they've really done a fantastic job building and continuing the legacy that of project management that Western started with in the 80s.
Yeah. I think the other element that that brings in, getting to know you over the last few months a little bit more and the expertise that you bring into it, that translates and feeds down to then the entry in the middle tier programs of the certificates that people can get as they're looking to get into the industry or progress in a career with the industry. I think the benefit that working with you has is that you bring this large, it's not just kind of the execution on the study guide to get you through the course, it's the broader discipline of project management. And for this particular exercise, we need to get you through the course, through the certification. So talk a little bit about these ideal groups. So obviously as people are listening, there's a broad set of businesses and different industries represented, but I think this is a good use case for anyone thinking about creating a book to address that audience, to start a conversation with the audience of people who they want to talk to. So we did some work to identify who that group is. Let's talk a little bit about those people and then where they are on their journey. Then we can talk about the book a little bit more, and hopefully as
Yeah.
people are listening, then they can substitute out their scenario for yours.
Well, 100%. And first and foremost, thank you, Stuart. You're too kind in your words. But yeah, so we also have a journey that we're starting on, right? So part of the reason that I started Rosemet was so I could help people get into project management. I call me what you will, but I love project management. And the reason that I love it is because you get to create something. So a project is something that has a definite start, definite end, is complex, unique, and interconnected. And so when we look at business, now my doctorate's in business administration, unless your job is to, or your business is to go out and purchase other companies and then break them up and sell them off, generally you want to go into perpetuity, right? You want to continue to create products and services and sell those. Well, from a project management perspective, it's a change management mechanism. It's for innovation. It's creating something that's unique, that individual organizations identify something that is of tangible value that their customers and clients are asking for, and now you are trying to bring it together and deliver it on time, within budget and scope and the quality that's associated with it. And so by being able to take that idea that has never been done before, certainly not, maybe not by that organization or by the project, have a framework around it and be able to go through the processes to actually have it realized and then say, hey, this is what you asked for. You've seen it create along the
Right.
way. And by the way, it's in budget and you're getting it on time and you're getting it, within your specifications. Talk about something cool to help organizations push forward on the side of men and women who are trying to get into this career field. You get to create those things. You get to be that change mechanism that, depending on the organizational structure, on how much flexibility and authority you have as a project manager, but you got to start someplace and then be able to grow into the position to be able to deliver that change for those organizations. And so, you've got the overall operations and admin side, which is certainly important, but then you have this microcosm of an innovative organization within it that needs to have many of the same principles and interconnective tissue to move forward. So Project Management Institute ran a study in 2020, or published in 2020, that forecasted 250 million project management jobs to be created from 2020 to 2030. Now, we all know in 2020 there's a little bit of
A
a
hiccup.
global issue,
Yeah.
and so those numbers, I would argue probably haven't changed too much over time, but that essentially equates to 25 million project management jobs each year being added globally.
Right.
And so the Certified Associate in Project Management, or otherwise CAPM, at least within the United States and North America, Forbes ran a article that PMI also has on their website that suggests a somebody who has a certified associate in project management annual salary is around $72,000 US dollars per year. Then now that when you look at the PMP, the average salary, now this is a little more squishy because you'll see a few different sites like Glassdoor and
Mm.
PMI and everything else, but you're looking right around 122,000 on average. And that's somebody, that by the time that they get earn their PMP, that's about what they're going to be serving. And that can go all the way up into the 250,000 plus range, depending on your role. But ultimately, for those who are interested in having that opportunity to affect change, to be able to create something, be that driver within an organization that is able to take something finite and have strategic change, that is what is particularly interesting and what we want to help people achieve. And so, yeah, we have those certification courses, but just to be a mechanism for this, Stuart, we also started a free community where people can download resources. They can come and ask us questions. Myself and I have another 5 individuals on our team that have their PMPs as well. And then we have a couple of team members that are earning their CAPM and a few more that are earning PMPs. So our organization is all centered around project management, but all of us are engaging in this platform in answering questions, holding office hours so people can ask questions. They get video content, things of that nature that we're just trying to get out and get the message out to folks so that way they can achieve what they are driving towards, which is a career to, you know, that has value, that has
It's
purpose. And
rewarding.
I would like to think rewarding, but I'm biased. I, but you have experience in project management. If I remember correctly, you started off as a project manager, didn't you?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a flashback. As you're talking about things, I'm kind of half of my brain is listening to what you're saying and paying attention and being a good host. And the other half is thinking, man, I used to know all of this off the top of my head because I was involved in it for so long. So with the UK background, like you say, we were Prince 2. So I forget the name of the introductory exam, which is the equivalent of the CAPM, but then the Prince 2 practitioner was the PMP equivalent.
Yes.
But my actual background was more on service delivery and service transition. So we had the ITIL, the ITIL framework. So again, when you're in that career and you're thinking about it as a career, there's lots of opportunities to add certifications and more frameworks to the list, to the resume. But then it's the real world application of that makes the difference. And I think that from a project management perspective is also to a certain degree what insulates it from potential AI changes. Obviously, AI is going to impact everything and the kind of PMO type roles, the more execution type roles on making sure that all of the dots are dotted and T's are crossed. All of that type of thing might get more AI'd, but the discipline of project management is dealing with the soft, squishy edges of things that make it out of scope and out of budget and out of time, and all of the reasons why it isn't just going to plan like it should be. So that transition from people who have got that skill set or that interest or that drive to see a project through, I think this career is a really good match and can open a lot of doors for people.
100%. And, I love the fact that you brought up AI. That one of my research areas is artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not talking about, the programming side of large language models. It's just more looking at it from a rationality versus bounded rationality. And just to give a quick snippet without really going too great a depth and boring everybody is, we're only capable of making decisions on the information that we have available to us and what we know that's objectively true, or your subjective
Yeah.
perspective. But when we start bringing in we started seeing the change within the internet, be and organizations like Google that can index and catalog all this information. So when people go out and do a search, they're able to pull back that information, and to the extent that they can retain the information and apply it, then you can make decisions on that. Now, if you're grabbing AI and providing that the AI is built on objective, truth, rather than injecting certain perspectives, because then that turns into a garbage in, garbage out type of
Yeah.
scenario. But regardless, it's going to get you closer to having more of a fully rational decision making, because you're pulling the arguably, as it advances, into a more the wisdom of the world type perspective. So you
Yeah.
can see those dynamics. Now, here is where it's really important, whether it be on project management or decision making writ large, is the human wisdom of it, to be able to discern.
Yeah.
Okay. As these models tighten, yeah, I can say, all right, here is the project that I'm working on, these particular, what would be called a work package. And that's just a smaller structure of something that needs to be performed. What do you say, possible risks are for during this particular segment, this work package that it's being worked on? Well, it can help you brainstorm, all right, but you're going to have to add the variables into it
Yeah.
and say, well, no, that doesn't apply because of this reason and that one, or it will apply because of XYZ, and being able to discern, and then connecting with the other humans that are actually either A, doing the work, or B, handling their segment of the work to be performed. And so project managers, yes, AI will be useful, in my opinion, to help, tighten in and making sure that you're staying more on schedule and help you with ideation and things of that nature. But it's the human that needs to be on the loop. It's the human that needs to make the decision. And it's the human that needs to have the wisdom on what is true and discern, what's
Yeah.
nice and fits an algorithm versus what may not necessarily fit or apply. There's an old saying that don't let the tail wag the dog. AI is an enabler. You can't, just because AI says it doesn't mean everything else needs to adjust because of it. I'm often reminded of The Office. If you've ever seen The Office, when Michael Scott is driving with Dwight and GPS told him to take a right, and Michael's like, no, take a right. And it was into a boat launch. With like a half a block up, it was the stop sign, and he insisted on it. It's one of those that, AI, things like project management has to be protected. And part of that is because of the scope of project management. I can't tell you, Stuart, maybe you've experienced this, but the amount of people that I've talked to about project management, they're like, yeah, but what's that mean? Because you have agile framework, so software development, those
Yeah.
iterative changes, you can do hybrid or predictive, which is, the more traditional. So you can build construction buildings, and you're going to have trades people doing that type of work. You'll have carpenters. AI is not going to take over carpentry, at least not in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Maybe when we get some robots
It's
out there or what.
But you're right. It's the squishy bits around the edge that aren't quite so black and white that really makes a difference. And I think anyone who's managed a project, whether it's officially under the umbrella of project management or even tried to plan going out for dinner, it rarely does. What's the other saying? No plan survives contact with the enemy, or everyone's got a
Yes.
plan until I punch him in the face. That Mike Tyson one. But it's the soft, squishy edges that make a difference. So when we think about the people, and I think this is where it's going to get really meaningful for listeners, we think about there's an audience of people out there who are the perfect fit, whether they know that they are or not, whether been exposed to the potential of project management or not. So there's an audience, and then there's the what you do, and the visible prospects are those ones who are kind of going around and looking for project management information, and the invisible ones are those ones who are ideal candidates, but maybe they just don't know. So what I like about the book approach and the approach of Rosemet overall is that it's really trying to serve the visible audience, because obviously these are the people knocking on the door, but it's also looking to engage the invisible audience, the people who don't yet know. And I think the majority of businesses out there have the same. There's people who are raising their hands and one step away from doing something, and then everyone else where it's a much longer conversion process or a much longer journey that they need to go on until they're ready to raise their hand and take that step. So talk a little bit about that group of people, the ones who are the perfect fit, who maybe have thought about project management but have been turned off by the idea that it's more studying. What are we doing to engage, to share with those people what the potential is and kind of demystify the path?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, the way that we start off with the book is we talk about what project management is and identify, you know, how people can find their way into it. I mean, for example, that certified associate in project management, you're a high school graduate and, you sit through the course and earn your certification. And now, don't get me wrong, it's not for the faint of heart. It is a challenging exam, but just by adding that credential, it shows that you're committed to getting into project management. And then there are plenty of jobs. In fact, I did a kind of a white paper type article where I looked at the demand for certifications and within North America, and PMP was number one, followed by Certified Scrum Master, which is an agile type of certification. Then it was CAPM. So the top three, two of which were CAPM and your project management professional certification. And so people who leverage the book are able to say, hey, is this the right fit for me? Or is this something that I'm really looking at doing? And for those people that have more work experience, I'll tell you, projects is one of those things that not all industries necessarily use, but just about every industry. So it doesn't use that lexicon, it doesn't use
Right.
that verbiage, but it's there. So those people, unless you're in a formal project management type role that leverages PMI's framework, if you have, 5, 6, 7 years experience in whether it be in the restaurant industry, if you're, maybe revamping or renovating and bringing in a new kitchen, or you're opening a new store, or you're even finishing a basement in your house. These skills are practical for everyone, and once you have that firm understanding of what a project is, which the book, at a basic sense, this is for those people to create understanding and awareness. But once they have an understanding, then they can choose which path makes the most sense for them, and really, take a new vector in their career, if that's the lens. And then I would say, from a business owner perspective, you and I have seen this, we've talked about it you know, at length. Organizations, sometimes they get so used to the way that they've gone about it, looking at slight tweaks can find efficiencies in the way that they go
Mm.
about bringing change with their own organization. So whether they see it as useful for their organization or for their employees to bring on these experts or get these people trained to become experts in project management, all to save them money over the long term, because now they are able to take a systematic approach with technically and tactically proficient understanding into their organization of to keep things on time and on schedule, or on schedule, on budget, within quality parameters, focusing on risk, all of the things that are important to business owners.
Yeah.
So
That idea of the cost of a project overrun, I mean, I think everyone has experienced it to some degree, but it's really quite dramatic once you start looking at the numbers. And there's again, I mean, even going back 15, maybe 15, I don't know, 15 years or so when I was involved, there was still case study after case study of the difference that management, both in terms of the staying on budget and the deliverable actually being deliverable and the quality of it doing what it wants. I mean, there's really some bad stories of long projects running, expensive projects, and then the deliverable just being scrapped effectively because it's just not fit for purpose. So I think from a business owner's perspective, again, having an awareness of the discipline is super powerful. The idea that people are maybe they've got a concept that project management is out there. They might be in an industry that recognizes it as a discipline and there's people in those roles. Maybe they've heard the stats about the jobs and the demand that it really is a reliable career path going forwards. Some of the ways that you've got to start the conversations with them, as we were talking in previous calls, is around this idea that they've got skills, they've got some experience, but they're turned off or reluctant because they feel like there's an overhead in the certification side of things. So they're kind of scared by that.
Yeah.
Do something to demystify or take the terror away from those types of things. Talk a little bit about that and people's experience of it as they're coming in.
Yeah, no, and that's a real concern because the exams are difficult. And you'll hear people who sit for the exams that they say they're never going to let those certifications slide. They're going to continuously keep up with their professional development units, which are essentially continuous learning because they don't want to have to take the exam again. Or if they're not going to do it, they're just not going to do it again. So,
Right,
uh,
yeah.
so we looked at it through a lens of, all right, one, how are we able to meet people where they are, get them trained, and also fit within their schedule? So we certainly will do asynchronous, but we offer an asynchronous approach. So in other words, rather than like you and I are having a conversation right now virtually, it's on demand. So people can view the course, but then we hold office hours. So people who come in and have questions and they're trying to study for this exam is they can ask us questions. They jump on, they have touch points with me. They'll have touch points with other of our PMPs, which, they come from chemical engineering or civil engineering, IT project
Mm.
management. And so educational background. So they come from various different areas, but we're able to answer questions because the methodology is structured and broad enough to fit within nearly every industry with touch points and tailoring to go in, whether it's going to be an agile or adaptive model versus the traditional predictive. But so we have those touch points and we have blocks where within our community where people can ask questions, we respond to those questions as well. So you're not looking at it simply from, hey, I get an on demand course or on-demand experience without anybody to answer my questions. No, we're engaged with those particular students, and their success is our success. If they don't succeed, that's our failure. It's not
Mm.
necessarily the individual's failure. And then we've also created these test simulations that I would argue, are harder than the exam themselves. So if they
Right.
can pass our exams, the intention is they go in and they ace the exam. I say ace because there isn't, the Project Management Institute doesn't grade it like A, B's, and C's and any of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. It's a pass or you didn't. But ultimately, our goal is for everybody to come in, not only understand the material, but walk away with the exam. So we're meeting people where they are, that we're helping them to learn project management and get ready for the exam by having touch points and then also give them the flexibility to study when it's convenient for them because whether it's a military member, is stationed overseas, deployed, or their spouse who's got to move every couple of years, or, somebody who's at home with a bunch of kids and, or, has to work 60 hours
Yeah.
a week to
The
support their
rest of
family.
life coming in.
Yeah, I mean, life happens. So to be able to have the flexibility throughout the week to have those touch points while also studying when it's convenient for you, we're blending both approaches.
Yeah. I think as we were talking about book titles when we were going through the setup stage, there's that idea that there's multiple touch points. We'd already kind of dialed in who the core group was that we wanted to talk to. So again, to make it applicable to other people listening, in your world, you've got existing people who are certified and looking to develop that career, and new people coming in who know they want the career, and people who don't know that they want the career but would be perfect fits for it. So those three groups, we already identified that group as that middle group, the group of people who were kind of were aware of it but moving forward. But then thinking more about where their pain point is and what the challenge is. So dialing in this idea that we went through a couple of iterations. One that we were talking about just before we started recording, the when we were on the first call together back last year sometime, we were looking at the group of people who didn't necessarily know that they would be a good fit. So this was the deployed to employed. It was the demobilizing or the end of career forces people who were perfect fits for project management. So deployed to employed as a book title resonates with those people because they don't know that project management is the thing, but this is introducing the idea. Now know the group of people who are the academic ones who are really deep in their career are probably going to find you anyway because it's more of a known world. But that middle
Mhm.
group of people, their pain point, the challenge that they were having for a lot of them is around this idea of the fear, and they know the stuff, but they don't realize how close they are if only they did a little bit more. So
Right.
the whole idea of dialing in the single target market and then focusing really on what the pain point is, what their starting point of the conversation that will get them to raise their hand. It's a really useful exercise, whether it's a book or an email that you're sending out, it still works.
100%. I will say, thanks to you and your team for the help with the book and really dialing that in for helping these people, because ultimately that's what it's about is, I'm passionate about the career field because I've seen all the goodness that has come from it. I've been in and around project management for nearly 25 plus years. And you know, for people to understand that they actually do project management, they just didn't realize it in the name.
Right. Yeah.
If you ever have a boss that comes up and says, "Hey, I need you to figure this out," and now you're like, "Well, I guess I'm just
Figuring
okay.
it out.
I got to deliver
Yeah.
this thing,"
Yeah.
you know, and you by having a set of inputs, tools, and techniques, and to create outputs, having that framework. The book that you helped us with was fantastic in creating that avenue to educate people of where they're at and where they understand what needs to be done, or what is within the realm of possibilities, I should say,
Mm,
with a little bit of, sprinkling in of some project management knowledge, but ultimately looking towards that career progression. So starting with, you know, I'm dipping my toe in the water and seeing if project management's where it's at. All right, now I'm mid-career, and now how do I transform into an executive leader focused on motivation and change? And
right.
so, we're, it's been a fantastic journey thus far, Stuart.
Yeah, it's exciting to see it start come together in like the final stages now of wrapping it all up. One question I always like to ask is the ideas of using it and getting it out there to people. When you first started the project and thought about a book as an opportunity to have that way of engaging people, did you have particular ways of using it in mind? Did you think, okay, I want to use something in this context and a book is the right thing to do? Or was it more coming from the point of view that I know a book is going to provide value, and then I'll find the specific ways to use it later?
Well, from my perspective, being an academic, I was kind of looking at it from an academic perspective. And let me be clear, the book is not an academic piece. It's not a peer-reviewed article, journal article. This is meant to, create understanding and broader commercial type value type of approach. So this is to fit a need for individuals. And so because I hearing the conversations from service members to people that are interested in project management, trying to figure out how they get into it. I saw a particular gap, if you will, that was present. And so I wanted to create something that created awareness for the broader field. Now, whether they take my book and, go out and, work with any of the project management organizations out there, great. This is all about creating that understanding about the career field. If they end up with us, great. I mean, that's perfectly fine as well, but it is more about having people create the understanding what the realm of possible is. Technology, we're in a fantastic time where just about a lot of things are possible that were only dreams years ago. Now, how do you harness human capital and the strength of human beings and the experiences and all center that towards achieving what it is that you're trying to set out to do, and do it in a manner that is appropriate and effective, efficient and effective. And
Yeah.
so that's from my perspective, that is the approach and why I decided to pursue a book, particularly on, the arts and science of project management and demystifying, what the, certified associate in project management and the project management professional certification is. Because quite frankly, going back to that article that I did about a year and a half ago now, was looking at the most in-demand certifications, and two of the top
Yeah.
three are both from Project
Project
Management
management.
Institute.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, isn't it? I think so many times we think about doing marketing activities as the short term, we're going to take an action and we want a result immediately. And if there are results down the line, then we don't attribute it to this action in the first place. It's very much a kind of an ad-based approach of, hey, I'm going to run an ad and I'm going to see what the return is in the next 30 days. And after that, it goes away. Whereas the reality of most of the real world business that we do and books as a marketing methodology is that return comes over the long haul. The conversations that we have with people, the introductions that we make, the presentations that we do, all of that typically results in business years out into the future, not days out. And the book's very much the same. So even if someone is introduced to the idea and it's not for them today, a book's probably going to live on their shelf for a longer period of time. And in 2 years' time, the timing might be right for them. Or maybe they'll read what you write and take the certificate with someone else. But then when they come to do the PMP or maybe later the master's level course, again, you've started that conversation and added some value early in the process. So there's more of a likelihood that something will come from that, even if it's not the immediately attributable stuff that we often spend too much time thinking about.
Well, that's exactly right. And ultimately, you're looking at a transactional to go back to your ads discussion. That's a one shot, and you may recycle it a year or two from now and maybe clean up a little bit of the imagery and send that out again and push another campaign. But where a book is, especially if there's a digital option, and you could have your hard and soft cover versions as well, that's gonna live beyond its years, and the organic nature of it,
Right.
and I'm thinking of this through an organic search and internet AI, seeing that it's pulling in data and all that text has got to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
to be able to attribute it back to business leaders and their thought leadership and researchers like me that take some of these actions and then analyze it empirically and show where there's value that comes from it. All of those come back to the writings and the books
yeah.
and the long-term approach. So that's my long-winded way, I'm sorry, Stuart, of saying
No,
yes, no,
not
I
at all.
fully agree. The organic side of things that comes with a book, has staying power. And
Everyone
so
was
you,
trained from birth not to break books or tear them up or throw them away. There's an outsized value to them just because of the way that it's packaged that we get to take advantage of a little bit. I always remember we did a podcast a couple of months ago now with Lee Ramey. It's back in the feed, but he was talking about taking his books and putting his sticker on the back of it with his contact details, and they are, if I remember the details correctly, I'm pretty sure they're a mold remediation company, that type of indoor air quality type place. So he would take some of the books and leave them in doctors' surgeries, just in the waiting room, like on the tables in there, and just put his contact details on the back, because his premise was they're going to live there for a long time because people are sat there reading, and people who are in doctor's surgeries are also probably good candidates for being worried about indoor air quality because of the nature of that cohort. So I asked him, "Oh, what did you have some relationship with the doctors? Were they okay with you doing that?" He said, "Oh, I didn't ask. I just walked in and sat down and put it on the desk and then stood up and walked out again. And he'd just do a circuit every couple of months and put another one there if it got taken away." So anyway, this idea that there's an organic longevity that is beyond anything that we can measure is, yeah, it is super interesting. Um,
that would be an interesting case study to see how many clients he got from doctors' offices.
right, yeah. And then a backward study of like cause and effect to see if there was some kind of medical condition in that local community that was then causing more of a indoor air quality issue that kind of spiked the results. But yeah, it's
It,
so interesting.
but part of me is wondering about, maybe you should partner with Joe Polish and, with his old carpet cleaning side of the
Right.
house and, going with the carpet cleaners and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and having those handed out as well because hey, you know what?
Yeah, and actually
Remediation.
and that we call it, I refer to it as complementary non-competing businesses. The idea of these complementary businesses who have your clients, but they're not competing because they're doing a different thing. But the carpet
Yeah.
cleaners to the mold remediation, I mean, that's a perfect match between the two because again, complementary non-competing. So I think whenever you're thinking about this idea of organic growth, and let's go to the second degree influence circle of people where you can add value to the conversation. Again, all of us in business have those relationships or those opportunities, but it does take a minute or two to get to that point of being able to think about it because we're so consumed with the day-to-day stuff first. But yeah, 20 minutes of sitting down with a pencil and thinking about who those people are, it really gives you a good organic kick that's broader than the initial.
Yeah.
I always seem to wrap up every podcast by glancing at the clock and realizing that time's flown by. So again, the same's happen. I want to make sure that people can reach out and find out more about what you do, either if they're interested in project management specifically, or they just want to connect with you to talk about the ideas more. Where's a good place to send people? Where's a good place for people to go?
No, thanks for asking. There's a couple of spots, obviously via LinkedIn. I'm there. My last name is spelled Shick. You know, Schick is often conflated with the razor, which is not spelled the same way, but or our website, which is www.rosemet.com. That is Rosemet.com. And then, as you and I were talking about, certainly welcome people into the community and take a poke around, shoot us a message, and we'll are happy to help you out or answer any questions about your own projects if you're stuck or how you should engage with your stakeholders or any risk type of discussions or what have you. That is a free community that we have access, and you can get that from our Rosemet page, or you want to send me a message via LinkedIn. I'll get you set up. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. And I'll get the link to that as well and make sure that the three links to your LinkedIn, the homepage, and the community page, I'll put all of those in the show notes. So as people are listening or watching along, just one click and they can get straight through. So yeah, that'd be a great resource. I think as well, not just for project management as a discipline, as a project manager, but also just to be able to ask those questions. It's yeah, super useful.
Excellent. Well,
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time. It really has flown by. Let's circle back later in the year, maybe once the book's been out there for a little bit longer and we've been using it in certain ways, and we can maybe do a follow-up episode and share some of the stories about how it's engaging those people that we're trying to engage.
no, that's great. Maybe we can go over the case study or what.
Yeah.
whatever, comes from that. But either way, Stuart, unsurprisingly, our conversation's always fantastic. And like you, I looked up, I said, oh, we're a little bit over time.
It
So
flies by, right? Flies by. Well, again, appreciate it. I'll let you go for sure. Everyone, thanks for listening. Make sure you check out the show notes for links directly through to Michael's stuff, and we'll catch everyone in the next one.
thanks, Stuart.